They're one of the most loved, one of the most celebrated, and easily one of the most powerful couples in Hollywood. Between them, they've acted in 50 films, they have 3 Oscar awards, and they're on their second trip to India as a couple. Welcome to India, Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
What brings you guys back to a country like India? I believe you came here in 2017, you had a great time. What's the appeal?
You know, when I came 2 years ago, when you've wanted to come to a country for so many years, read so many books and visualized how it would be, and then to come back with your husband, to come for the first time with your husband and your 2 children who were equally as excited, and for it to live up to exactly what you thought it would, it was really quite special.
What was the one thing that stood out for you in that trip?
The people.
The people?
The people, for me, and the color, and the intensities of the smiles, and but for me, for sure, it was the people. I felt as if I'd been here before. It was a very kind of déjà vu in a good way, feeling.
And Michael, for you, what's the one thing that stands out about this country for you, if there is anything that does?
Well, we had a great trip because we started here in Delhi. We went to Agra, and just to see these wonders. And from there, we went to the tiger safari camp and had a couple of days in the tent. So the combination, and then going to Jaipur, the combination, as Catherine said, of just the fantastic energy this country has. How closely everybody works together, wonderful attitude, wonderful friendship that exists. And I think also for us as a family, we shared it with our kids who loved it. And so we're really happy to be back the second time.
All right. You come at a time of great churning within cinema, certainly in Hollywood. There's a great churn happening in this country's cinema as well. Streaming services, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. You've just done a very successful series, The Kominsky Method, with Netflix. You've done Queen America. As actors, as artists, is the process any different for you between the big screen and the small screen, or is it just the same?
For me, the process is not different. For me, when I do theatre, it's a different, because you have that. You have the audience, and you have that live reaction, and each night you play with it and are able to find new things as each performance goes on. For me, the streaming television film the process is, as an actor, is not different for me. What I go through to get there, and still working long hours. For me, what I found after doing Queen America was the immediacy of it all. But television's a bit like that too. Whereas movies, you know, we sometimes it's a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years maybe, until it actually comes to fruition, and all of a sudden you're on to so many different things. But it's the future, you know. I feel like there's, I mean, when Michael doing his amazing show, there's such great talent in streaming. Great writers are able to have a much stronger role, not just giving their work off to the studio and then whatever happens. They can be showrunners. There's a lot of creative. I mean, there's a lot to filter through too. There's so much content, but I think it's wonderful for the creative side of
Do you believe that the stronger roles, the meatiest parts, are now all coming in television, not so much on the big screen? Yeah,
for a lot. I mean, this is the best time in the history of films and film or television because of streaming. Streaming has allowed so many more opportunities for so many people. I'm not talking about actors alone, directors, writers, producers, everybody in the industry. It's also the first time it's allowed. I think you in India have the same situation where you have television actors and you have movie actors. And they're on separate tracks, and you're perceived, because I started this business as a television actor doing a series, and I know the separation that existed. And now all of a sudden you have film people coming into streaming, interacting with television. It's a very, very exciting time. As far as any differences, no. It's a tighter budget, most cases, a shorter period of time. Netflix, who I work with in my series, Kominsky Method, has a big presence here in India.
Yeah, of course.
They're building, I believe, a studio here too. They're working on production, local production. They translate into 40 different languages.
Yeah, including into languages in India.
Yes. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the reason I sort of touched upon that, and I'm sure both of you are aware of this, there's this whole debate that's going on, I think started off by Martin Scorsese, saying that Marvel films are just basically, in his words, theme park films. And then Francis Ford Coppola sort of got in and said that it's despicable. And you are best placed to answer this because you're doing both the streaming stuff and you're in Ant-Man, where you know. So is the experience different as an actor?
No, but I mean, speaking about, Marty, who you know, is one of our great directors, and very seldom do people ever say no. Irishman was turned down by every single studio, right? It was turned down by every single studio. Just as I did a show a few years ago about a character named Liberace, Behind the Candelabra, which was also turned down at every studio, but was made by a streaming service. So I find it a little odd for Marty, after having this opportunity by Netflix to make this large production. And I also don't want to accuse Marty of making movies only about Italians or gangsters. Either that's a little unfair. So I think, I know what he was trying to say. I think it was just misinterpreted.
But if you were to sort of logically extend that, you know, 5-10 years down the line, the Oscars, for example, you'd have to have Oscars for streaming services because, like you said, the character roles, the meatiest parts are all going to television, and cinema is just full of this superhero stuff.
Well, I think they're having that fight.
Debate. They're having that debate right now.
Right now, it's not. I mean, right now, and Netflix, in their position, have bought two major theaters: the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood and the Paris Theater in New York, and they are showing their films at a week or 2 weeks in theaters to justify being in the Academy Awards.
No, but do you see the Academy Awards like 5 years down the line, like the Golden Globes? You have separate awards for TV and separate awards for cinema, or
no? The Academy Awards
will solely be for cinema.
Will be for cinema.
There may be another award show that comes in for the streaming awards, but I think it will always be the Academy Awards.
Talking about the Academy Awards, there's 3 Oscars between the two of you. You won your first Oscar when you were 32 years old for One Flew as a producer, and then, of course, as an actor in Wall Street. It was '87. You won for Best Supporting Actor for Chicago. Does the Oscar change your life? Is life before the Oscar and after the Oscar completely two different things?
I think the only thing that's different is that your name, you know, gets preceded with Academy Award winner, which is a very lovely thing. I remember when I was lucky enough to win for Chicago. It was like, okay, now the work really starts, you know.
Does it put more pressure on you? Like you're now Academy Award winner, Catherine Zeta-Jones. So the expectations.
I think it's an accolade that just serves you well. You know, it doesn't. I would be foolish to think that it's a label that I would never want. You know, that's hindered me in any way. Absolutely not. It was a great honor, but certainly. I'm very honored to have done the work and had the kudos for it. You know, we all work so hard in all our movies. We all want. No one ever does a movie hoping that no one ever sees it or it gets bad reviews and it never gets any awards. And so every one of us, you know, behind the camera and in front, go out to make movies that, you know, have some precedence. So with Chicago, it won Best Picture as well that year. I was really honored to be part of it.
What
for
about
me,
you?
well, for me, I think it was more personal. It was really the first time that I felt like I stepped out of the shadow of my father.
Yeah.
And you know, my father's an extraordinary actor and had a great career. And I think by winning an Oscar as Best Actor, it gave me a personal acknowledgement, my own personal identity, and really felt like the monkey was off my back, you know.
Did you feel like that? Did you feel till '87, till Wall Street happened?
I did.
You were always being judged by this larger-than-life shadow of your father.
I did. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I learned a lot. But you know, a lot in the early times of my career was, it's just like your father. That's just like I said. Well, you know, he is half my genes. That's just, you know. And so it was just, and also I think he played earlier in his career sort of sensitive young men, gentle guys, and this and that. And it wasn't only until he did a picture called The Champion, where he played a bad guy, that he got nominated for an Oscar. And sort of for me, I think it was with Wall Street playing a bad guy. Was good.
Yeah,
bad is good.
Talking about your father, and I think you put this up on your Instagram, that you celebrated 20 years of your marriage just a few weeks ago, and there was a note from your father-in-law, and I'm going to read from it. and the note said, "Michael, you learned a very important lesson in life. To stay married, you must obey your wife. Keep practicing what I do with my wife." Is that the secret to a long and successful marriage?
Well, it is if you're the father-in-law. I'd say he is, FaceTime is such an amazing.
Every night. Here in India, he's FaceTimed us.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Every
yeah.
night we FaceTime.
He loves, he's 6:30, and we had to tell him, Dad, now it's a 13-and-a-half-hour time change, okay? Please remember.
In California.
He forgets sometimes. But he adores Catherine. I mean, most of the time, I'll, hey, Dad, how are you? Fine. Where's your wife? Okay.
He is an outrageous flirt.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Outrageous.
He's what, 102?
He's
Going to be
103 on Monday.
On Monday.
And you're going back for that, right?
Cannot. No, we have
cannot.
other plans.
But we've been there for 97, 98, 99, 100, 101,
I mean,
102. We're missing 103, but we're going to be there for 107 and 8 and 9 and 10.
But can you imagine that, 103? I mean, can you even foresee you being 103?
No, especially as together as he is, a great sense of humor, understands everything, talking, it's inspirational. And his wife, my stepmother, she's 100.
Oh, wow.
So they have 65 years of marriage.
That's 200 plus years between
But
the
I look at him and I look at his, forget about his career, but just what he's seen through his life.
Yeah.
The changes. Forget
the
about wars to technology, to the man on the moon, to medicine innovation. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And he's just inspirational. So this boy has good genes.
I hear it's
just like his dad.
I hear it skips generations. That's what I'm worried about.
No.
But what is the? I know it's a cliched question. I'm sure you guys have been asked this 1,000 times. But really, what does it take to make a marriage work, and for so long?
I think being kind to each other and retaining a sense of humor through thick and thin. I think that's one of the.
Yeah, I think sometimes I find ourselves making more of an effort with strangers than we do with the person that's closest to us.
Yeah, we take them for granted, right?
We're more worried about what our image is and making more and taking the person closest to you for granted.
Yeah.
And I think you have to cherish that person.
But is it harder because both of you are in public life? I mean, so much of your life is out there.
I think it makes it easier. I mean, as far as understanding each
other? Oh, yes, for sure.
And for understanding the occupation and that part of it makes it easier.
Don't forget that we're born on the same day.
Yeah.
25 years difference. I hasten to remind everybody.
Share the same birthday.
But
same day.
I really believe in the astrology of our beings, and we're very similar in very many ways.
Oh, wow. Tell me how, though. Like in personality traits?
Well, look at the way we're sitting right now. We always order the same things at restaurants.
Oh, you do?
Even if I'm sitting at this end of the table and Michael's at the other end of the table.
I mean, really, is literally on big. You have 5 pages, and we order the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that what it takes to make a marriage work? Similar.
It helps. It helps.
Food. Yeah.
One of my favorite Indian movies, Lunchbox.
Oh yeah.
I love that movie so much.
Talking about Indian movies, have you guys been? I'm sure you've been offered Indian movies before.
No, and I'm still waiting.
No,
You've never been offered.
That's the other reason why we're here.
We're here. My children and my husband have seen Om Shanti Om. Well, it came out as soon as it came out, my kids were little. They have watched it over and over and over
Wow.
on a loop. We
Wow.
have the soundtrack. We play, and sometimes when we have Indian food at home, we have Om Shanti Om playing in the background because
No, they know.
we know it.
Yeah.
Don't get her started. She's about to get up and.
Om Shanti Om. No, you have no idea.
Is that because you have a sort of dance background in your life? I mean, even Chicago.
Yes.
Was
Yes.
a musical, right?
Yes,
Is that
and-
why you sort of like or relate to Indian movies?
When this is the truth. I'm not saying this just because I'm in India right here speaking to you. But when I was growing up and I wanted to be in I never really thought about movies. It was being performing, being on the stage, and then when I kind of did that in London and wanted to move on into movies, I always thought to myself that I was born in the wrong era. I should have been.
Why
I should have
that?
been born in the Bugsy Barkley musicals, or the kind of golden age of Hollywood, where I'd be tap dancing with Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, and I'd be, or I should have been born in India, and been in the Bollywood movies, you know. And I think because I came from Britain within a very big community of Indians around, in my hometown, and so Bollywood was around, you know. And so I always thought, it was either being born in the golden age of it, or if I only was born in India, I would have had a wonderful career.
And I think tomorrow, when we have our summit, our moderator is Anil Kapoor.
Yep.
And of course, you've seen Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah.
He's done a few others besides that.
Yes.
No, talking about Indian movies again. I keep coming back to the Oscar conversation because there's a big debate in this country and has been for a number of years. We make the largest number of movies, the Indian film industry. I think it's over 1,000 films every year, and yet we haven't won an Oscar for picture or director. So there are two schools. One school which says we have to make better movies to win the Oscar, and it's a big thing. And there's another school which says it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's something that's devised for Hollywood films, and we have our own thing going. Do you guys have a view on that? How do you make an Oscar-winning film?
Well, I don't. I mean, I do. I would say that the Oscars, I'm always amazed, are the most generous organization I've ever seen as far as giving Oscars to people from other countries. So I understand that India has not won an Oscar, but there's a whole number of other countries that have.
Yeah.
And I'm always surprised, truthfully, how generous they are. I think distribution has a little bit to do with it. And I think, and because Bollywood itself is so strong and so persuasive and not necessarily the Oscar type films, that maybe some of your smaller,
Lunchbox.
Lunchbox, which I thought was an incredibly executed.
Don't get the distribution to be seen.
It got nominated, but I
It
don't
got
think it won.
nominated, yeah.
But so that brings me to how do you pick material? Like in your case, for example, I mean, One Flew you were 30-odd years old, or Wall Street. How do you as actors pick material which you think, okay, this is it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this because this excites me. What is it? Is there something that sort of triggers off when you hear the script? What is it?
Well, for me, this is the biggest advantage of being a producer. And so very early in my career, both starting this television series, which was called The Streets of San Francisco, and I don't know if it was ever distributed here, it's 50 years ago in India. But by having a series and looking at scripts for every week, looking at one episode after another, in the summer, working in summer theaters with playwrights, it was always about material. So I realized early on, it really doesn't matter what your part is or anything unless the material is good. Yeah. And so you read something, if you get emotionally moved, you laugh, you cry, you're scared, then I'll go back and read it again to make sure structurally that I was not seduced by the writing, that structurally it makes sense. And I'm a pretty old-fashioned sort of structuralist in that matter. And then if you know you have a firm foundation, a firm blueprint of what you're building, you're in much better shape. And then I'd much rather be have a small part in a good movie than a big part in a bad movie.
Yeah.
And Catherine, how do you pick? Because you've done far fewer films. Either you're very choosy about it, or what is it?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's on the emotional level where it touches me. You know, for Chicago, for example, that was a slam dunk. You know, that when I thought, from coming from musical theatre many years ago, and thought never get the chance to do it on film in that medium forever on celluloid, they came to me and it was, yeah, you know, absolutely. And then
you knew you had to do this the first
oh yeah,
time.
yeah, and the same
got
with when Soderbergh came to me and asked me to do Traffic. Because it was a different movie, it was a different style of movie, a different film. I mean, for me, working with Soderbergh 5 times has been a real treat, you know. And so, but it's you know, it's if it's on the page, it grabs you. You just got to run with it. It's the, you know, my husband being a producer, there's been so many projects that I've fallen in love with, and they've been very, very hard to not, you know, to get up and running. It's with all the best laid plans, with the star attached, and somebody's finance falls out. It's a really hard process to get anything made.
And both of you, I mean, I think you've said it in the past, if you were to actually come together as a couple on screen, you would want to act in a remake of War of Roses. Is that right?
Why not?
Well, I said that in the fact that I think people genuinely don't want to see real life couples having a love fest on film. It's like, ew, you know. I think it seems a little voyeuristic to me. But to see Michael and I in a combative kind of role together, or something that's fast-paced, dialogue-wise, or funny, where we laugh at each other with each other. Would be fun, but
is that how it is in real life, though?
I was going to say, I wasn't sure. But no, we'd have to do a movie to do a combative scene.
We wouldn't know what that means.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us here on CNN-News18, and wish you all the very best and a great time here in India.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.